All right. Some brothers and sisters have been asking what happened with Dan. Okay. Now I'm just going to pull out one thing. Let's go to Genesis 49. There's a full study we're going to do on Dan, and you'll have that up on the page. Read it.
Genesis chapter 49, verse 16.
Start at the first verse.
Verse 1. And Jacob called unto his sons, and said, Gather yourselves together, that I may tell you that which shall befall you in the last days.
So he said, gather yourselves together so I can tell you what shall befall you in the last days. Read.
Verse 2. Gather yourselves together, and hear, ye sons of Jacob.
And hear, ye sons of Jacob. So before Jacob, whose name was turned to Israel, passed, he brought each son to his bedside and told them what will befall them in the last days. All right? Now, through these prophecies, we understand where the children of Israel are today and what prophecies pertains to them. So when others ask us, how do we know who the 12 tribes are? The fathers told us the attributes and prophecies that would befall the Israelites in the last days. It's that simple. And because we understand there's not too many races in this earth. It's a very, when you look at the number of races, it's only a few races in the earth. It's easy to relate Israelite prophecy to the other people. You only have Hamitic people, which are Africans, Asian people, which are Japhetic, and Shemite people, which is all the rest. The Negroes in America, the Indians, the Shemites is white people, Arabs. So it's really three separate families in the earth. It's not hard to figure out who's who when it comes to Ham, Shem, and Japheth. All the lines come out of those three sons. So the only thing we would need to do now is to say, okay, let's look at the prophecies of the last days and see who fits what would bestow them according to prophecy in the last days. It's that simple. The Most High is not going to have his prophecies pertain to any other people than the people he was speaking of. It's that simple. All right? So, when you ask us about Dan, well, what's going on with Dan, what happened with Dan, we're going to give you an insight on what we'll be going into. Read in the 16th verse.
Verse 16. Dan shall judge his people as one of the tribes of Israel.
Dan shall judge his people as one of the tribes of Israel. Now we know that Dan was not supposed to be in that position. When the 10 tribes fell, which is the northern kingdom, the North American Indians and all those different tribes that came to the Americas, when they fell, Dan set himself up as judges and started doing sacrifices to Moloch and started building temples to Moloch. These are the worships that the Jewish powers are following today. During the time of the Maccabees, the Sabians linked in with the so-called Danites. During the time of the Maccabees, a few years before Christ came on the scene, around 60, 70 years before Christ came on the scene, they were still operating, but they started migrating within the Idumeans, which are Edomites. We're going to go into that history very soon. But we want to give you a tidbit of what we're going to go into, or what we will show in the future. Read.
Dan shall judge his people as one of the tribes of Israel.
Go ahead.
And Dan shall be a serpent by the way.
He shall be a serpent by the way. A serpent links directly to the devil, to show you that Dan would eventually start operating with Satan. Read.
An adder in the path.
And an adder in the path. An adder is a poisonous snake. That means he would be in the way of us receiving our salvation. That eventually Dan will fit in future prophecy, predominantly in future prophecy, as the tribe that would actually go against his brethren. Read.
That biteth the horse heels, so that the rider shall fall backward.
So that the rider shall fall backward. So he was put in. He ended up turning and going against the 12 tribes to make us fall backward. So he joined league with the Romans and the Idumeans. But before that, he started a priesthood in the northern kingdom and started dealing directly with Moloch and child sacrifice. And we're going to prove that. Now, as we read in Genesis 49 and understand that according to the Bible, the Most High said he put his spirit in Jacob to tell his sons what will befall them in the last days. Also, there's a record that they did not Canaanize in the Bible. He went into further detail with each of his sons. And it's in a book called The 12 Patriarchs. So when you read Genesis 49, it actually, Genesis is a microcosm of what the Most High showed in the 12 patriarchs. He actually go into deeper detail of what he told each son along his bedside. So each tribe has a record. Each patriarch have a record. It's called the 12 patriarchs. Now, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I'm going to read the end of the book of Dan to show you further information that was showed to Dan and what would befall him in the last days. So we'll know where Dan stands today. I need you to read right here the chapter, the Testament of Dan, the 7th chapter. And I need you to read this paragraph right here, starting with depart.
Depart therefore from all unrighteousness, and cleave unto the teacher by his works, the law of the Most High.
Nah.
Excuse me.
Go ahead. And cleave unto the righteousness.
And cleave unto the righteousness of the Most High, and your race will be saved forever.
So it says, depart therefore from all unrighteousness and cleave unto the righteousness of the Most High. That's the law. And your race will be saved forever. Read. So that the law is what saves us. The law is our righteousness. Read.
And bury me near my fathers.
And then Jacob told Dan, you all need to bury me near my fathers. Read.
And when he had said these things, he kissed them, and fell asleep at a good old age. And his sons buried him. After that, they carried up his bones and placed them near Abraham and Isaac and Jacob. Nevertheless, Dan prophesied unto them that they should forget their God, and should be alienated from the land of their inheritance.
What did he tell Dan?
Nevertheless, Dan prophesied unto them that they should forget their God.
That they should forget their God. Read.
And should be alienated from the land of their inheritance.
And they shall be alienated from the land of their inheritance. Read.
And from the race of Israel.
And from what?
And from the race of Israel.
And from what?
And from the race of Israel.
And from the race of Israel. Read.
And from the family of their seed.
And from the family of their seed. So when you go into Revelation 7, you see 12 tribes excluding Dan. Because Dan now have been alienated from Israel. And it says, and from the family of their seed. He's no longer linked in as a family member of the 12 tribes. Any existence of Dan in the earth is strictly Gentile now. It's strictly Gentile. They end up mixing with the Idumeans and merging their seed with the Idumeans and the Romans and coming against Israel and started a network of teachings or powers of worship to go against the children of Israel and the teachers in Christ. So now they've been alienated and they're no longer a part of the race of Israel. So you don't see it. You don't see in Revelation 7, 12,000 of Dan. Because Dan was used to help destroy the children of Israel. Who took Dan's place? When Dan fell, Levi, who was scattered throughout each suburb, now became a tribe. No longer would they be the priests, they became a tribe of Israel, and they took Dan's place. All right? Again, when you have the information, you don't have to deal with your own opinion. The information brings forth truth. All right? But we'll do a full lesson on what Dan went into to fulfill this prophecy here. All right. So these books I go into here is the apocryphal books, but they're apocryphal books that the Catholic Church, Old Testament apocryphal books that the Catholic Church did not allow our people to receive. And this again came out of Oxford University. So colleges out there have our information. All right? I had to show that. Last but not least, give me the scriptures in Maccabees real quick. Out of the Apocrypha, that based on the Feast of Dedication. You have it? Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, some might ask when it comes to holy days,